you really think about it, we live in a society today where people are just used to getting their services just like that, at the drop of a hat, and people lack patience. So it's very important that, hi, welcome to Blogging for Dummies Part 2. Today I'm going to be answering some of the most common blogging questions I could find on the interwebs. I scoured Google and other blogging websites to find these most asked questions. So without further ado, let's just get right into it, shall we? So, number one on the most asked blogging questions is, how do you find a web host? And what should you be looking for when you are buying a web host? And what are the most important things that a web host should include? Well, there are 5 main things that a web host should have for your website. And those are speed, uptime, where are the servers located, do they back up and save your post and all the data that you need, and is it a self-hosted web host? That is very important. If you're a blogger, you need a self-hosted web host, and that just helps you gain more opportunity to monetize your blog, and it just makes the process of earning money easier compared to a hosted web host. So just keep that in mind. When you are checking the speed for your website, you want to make sure that your website is loading as fast as possible, because if your website is not loading fast, that can deter people away from staying on your website, which can affect what we like to call a bounce rate. And the bounce rate is just pretty much how many people stay on your website and for a certain amount of time, and how many people leave your website when they're on your website. So the lower your bounce rate is, the better. That means less people are leaving your website. And speed can really affect this. If you really think about it, we live in a society today where people are just used to getting, their services just like that, at the drop of a hat, and people lack patience. So it's very important that, you kind of cater to your audience and keep that in mind, because when something takes longer to load, longer than what a person's used to loading, they're not gonna be patient enough to wait. They're gonna leave your website. So just keep that in mind. And when it comes to your site's uptime, you wanna make sure that your site is up a majority of the time, because there are instances where web hosts like to do maintenance, or, they are having troubles with their web host, and your site will be down. So the longer that your site's down, the less people are able to find your website, and it can really hurt your chances of being found on search engines. So you really want to make sure that your web host that you choose has really good uptime, and if they are going to schedule any maintenance, they should be notifying you beforehand, so when your website isn't going to be up, so you're not bombarded and surprised when you go on your website and it's not working, or people are asking you, what's wrong with your website, I can't get to it, because that's just not a good look. So it's really important that you choose a web host that has really good uptime, and the uptime that you need is 99% or higher. You don't want to ever go below an uptime of 99%. So just keep that in mind. And when it comes to servers, you want to make sure you know where your servers are located for your website, because let's say, for example, if you want to focus on bringing in traffic from people that live in certain regions, let's say you live in the US and you want to focus on bringing traffic from people that live in the US, and you find out that your web hosts only have servers in Europe or Asia, it's going to be really hard for people that live in the US to get access to your website, and they might not have access at all. So you really want to make sure that you know where your servers are located for your web host, and you want to make sure that you are able to reach the audience that you intend to and that you want to reach, aka your target audience. And if you don't know what a target audience is, I do have a video on that I will link at the end of this video, but I deter. So yeah, you just really want to make sure the ins and outs of your web host, and do your research and do your due diligence, because the last thing you want is to pay for a web host to set up your website and have your legal pages set up and everything going, and then you find out that the server that your web host is on is not for the region that you live in, or for the region that you want your audience to come from. So it's very important that you know these things, and it's essential to your success as a blogger. So you want to make sure that your website your web host regularly updates mechanical or maintenance issues, and that you can back up and you can save your work. Because whether we want to admit it or not, technology can be faulty and not everything works 100% of the time. So let's say you lose access to your web host somehow, or you just lose your website somehow, and that can be very detrimental to your blog. So you really want to make sure that you can have a plan B and that you can save all your work. And it's really important that you have a web host that can back up and save your work and your data, just so you won't have to start over from ground zero, because that can be really frustrating and really just soul crushing to have to go through something like that. So you always want to work smarter and not harder, and be prepared for anything to happen. And especially if you want your blog to be a business, you got to start thinking like a business person. And any smart business person would have a backup or save their files in more than one place, just to save their ass when they need it one day. So just keep that in mind as well. So number 2 on the list of questions that were commonly asked is, what is the difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org? And believe me, there is a difference, and this is something I wish I would have known before I started my blog, because it's going to be essential to how you're able to monetize your content for your blog. So listen closely. So WordPress.org is a self-hosted platform that can help you set up your website and really give you certain customizations for your website and different options to choose from. And with WordPress.org, you can be more hands-on, hence why you have more options for customizations and things like that. And if you are a blogger or selling any type of physical products, you want to use WordPress.org or self-hosted web platform or web host, because it's easier just to monetize your website and your content and things like that, compared to WordPress.com. So WordPress.com is more hands-off. You have less options for customizations and things like that, and you get more help and you get more guidance with WordPress.com. However, with anything, there's going to be their pros and cons. However, I really do recommend, as a blogger, you stick with getting WordPress.org, because in the long run, it's going to serve you so much better, and you will have less issues custom or monetizing your content and your blog. So just keep that in mind. Now, when you're starting your blog, you may also be wondering, well, now that I know what I should be looking for my web host and what kind of web host platform I should be choosing between WordPress.com and WordPress.org, then you may come across another question, which is, what is the difference between cloud hosting and shared hosting? And the main difference between those two is, for cloud hosting, you are pretty much paying a substantial amount to be hosted on your own server that you don't have to share with anyone. And if you are a big business and you can afford to pay out of pocket for this cost, I say go ahead and go for it. However, if you are just starting out your blog and it's just you and you're trying to save money, going for shared hosting is completely okay. There is nothing at all wrong with that. And in the future, if you want to switch over to cloud hosting, you can. So it's not set in stone that you just have to stick with shared hosting the entire time. So just keep that in mind. So number 5 on the list of the most asked blogging questions is, how do you write a good quality blog post? And in my opinion, there are certain things that separates an okay blog post from a great blog post. So there are certain components that you really need to make sure that your blog posts have. And since this isn't the main point of the video, we are just going to go over those main points, or some of those main points, very briefly. However, if you want, I can do a more in-depth video on this, because it's very important that when you start a blog that you're writing quality blog content, because that can determine the success and future of your blog, and how you gain your audience and build your audience and keep your audience's attention. So for me, there are 7 things that a blog post should always have that make a blog post a great blog post and not just a good blog post. So those things are credibility. Do you know what you're talking about? Is the information that you are giving people the right information? Is it credible information? And is it going to help someone? Second is the length of your blog post. Generally, when you want to rank on Google and search engines, having a good length blog post is very, very important. And so you want to make sure that you are getting as in detail as possible. And if you have like an advice blog or a how-to blog, you want to make sure that you are getting it as detailed as possible and doing step-by-steps and not leaving any details out, because if they realize that you're not giving them, you know, all the information, that can really hurt your credibility. So just keep that in mind. And you're going to need images, because let's face it, a blog post without images is boring, and we don't want that. So we don't want your readers to be falling asleep while reading your blog post. And actually, humans are very visual creatures, so it's important to have some type of imagery in your blog posts, and it can make it a little more interactive and a little more stimulating for your readers. And make sure the content that you produce is understandable and can resonate with most people. And by this, I mean, don't use a lot of jargon. Write your blog post like you're talking to one of your good friends and explaining something to them. You want to be professional, but a little more casual in how you present the information, so you don't want to use a lot of jargon that people don't understand. And if you do use jargon, or if you must use jargon, make sure that you explain the jargon that you're using, because not a lot of people know certain jargons, especially for certain fields and niches. So it's really important that you do that. And avoid any huge terminologies and big words and stuff like that unless you absolutely need to use them, or they're absolutely necessary, you know, to prove your point. And then you want to make sure that you edit your blog post. And you would be surprised at how many people don't do this, or if they do it, they don't do it very precisely, or, you know, they just kind of just brush through. It's really important that you edit your blog post. And one of the things that I highly recommend you do is get like a grammar checker. One that I highly recommend is Grammarly. I absolutely love Grammarly, and you know, it's helped me so much, not only in my blogging, but sending emails to people, you know, when I'm going to school, writing essays, you know, sending emails to my professors, you know, posting on message boards for the classes. So Grammarly is a great tool no matter what you're doing. As long as you're writing something that needs to be edited, using Grammarly is a great idea. And using it in your blog posts is no different. And, you know, we are humans, we can't catch every single mistake, and that's why using a, you know, grammar checker or editor is something that is really smart to do, and just having like that second pair of eyes. Another thing is you want to make sure that you write not only quality content within your blog post, but you want to make sure that the title that you choose for your blog post is very enticing and eye-catching. That, if you really think about it, if somebody's searching up, you know, certain questions online or certain terms or keywords online and your blog post pops up, what is one of the first things they're going to notice about your blog post? The title of your blog post. So it's really important that you know, create good titles that, you know, catch people's attention without being clickbaity, and really can convey the main point of your article or of your post, and something that people will be interested to click on. And last but not least is make sure your blog post includes keywords and key search terms, and really can help you rank on search engines. And keywords and SEO is a whole other ballpark, so we won't get much into that. But just make sure that you are incorporating certain and specific words that are relating to your blog posts so people can find you on search engines. And this brings me to number 6 on some of the most asked questions. How long should my blog post be? So I would say the longer the better. So I would say 2,000 words or higher. And when you're doing this, it's really important that when you do write a blog post that is 2,000 words or more, that you're not just, putting in random information and that you're making stuff up. You want to make sure that every single line that you write is informational and helpful and credible and true and concise. And I know writing, especially if you're not really a writer and you have trouble coming up with ideas, it can be hard writing 2,000 words and putting that out to people. However, I found that when I did write my blog post, that the longer the blog post was, the better it did in ranking on Google. So that's just from my personal experience. I don't know if everyone's going to be the same, but some of my top ranking blog posts are some of my longest in length. So I would definitely try to incorporate at least 2,000 words for your blog post, because that means that you're being more detailed, and the more detailed you are, the better it is not only for you to rank on Google, but it is better for your readers because they are learning more information. You are guiding them better, and they are essentially just getting, really quality work from you. So just keep that in mind. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notifications to get notified when I post new videos every week. And I will see you soon. Bye.